I was a little nervous about like the actual home birth part because I doubted my body a little bit from the first time.
If there's someone that is experiencing fear right now, you know, because their due date's getting closer and they don't know if they've, you know, kind of done some of those things, what are some things you suggest?
OBs, they spend 3 minutes on average with you.
Wow.
Whenever you go in for an appointment.
3 minutes?
On average, yeah, 3 minutes.
That's crazy.
I really am so passionate about that. I love just being there, witnessing. As long as everything is great, then we don't need to poke or pry.
It's not always really talked about that, like, you're going through this massive hormonal shift and things. So what are some things you tell women to like prepare for postpartum?
We always hear our like moms and grandmas say, after you have a baby, you're gonna have to wear a pad for the rest of your life because every time you jump, every time you sneeze, every time you cough, you're gonna pee your pants.
That's not normal.
And that is not normal at all. I tell people all the time that it actually is like really easy to take care of a newborn. Like, that's not the hard part. It's taking care of yourself and a newborn.
Yeah.
Hi mamas, my name is Megan Norcus and welcome to Our Virtual Village. Starting this podcast was inspired by a local mom group that I went to during my pregnancy and postpartum journey. Connecting with and relating to other moms was a major key for me as I was navigating all the new things that come with being a new mom. So my goal with this podcast is to bring those conversations and stories from my community to a virtual platform, and that's gonna bless moms everywhere. I'm so excited. My hope is that as you listen to this episode, you can hear from and learn about the common struggles that other moms are having in the trenches of motherhood with you, and feel encouraged because you're not momming alone. We're all winging it at this mom thing, and we can all learn from and help each other. So we're excited to have you as part of our village, and let's dive into the conversation.
Well, today's conversation is going to be so much fun because Mandi is a rock star. So she was actually my midwife, and you were the first home birth midwife I ever talked to, which is wild. And you've been a midwife now for 4.5 years. You also own Modern Midwives along with another midwife, and y'all's practice is thriving, serves all over Northeast Florida, and I think you just are probably one of the most well-known midwife offices in our area, so it's an honor to sit here with you. But
thank you.
Yeah, it's also just like so much fun because you're my friend.
Yeah.
So it'll be a really fun conversation. You've blessed me a ton with what you've taught me, how you walked me through not only pregnancy that I thought was going to go real smoothly all the way to the end, but you were also the one that showed up when I was laboring and things took some wild twists and turns. And so I owe you my life for helping me walk through some of the craziest and most intense moments of my life. So thanks for being amazing.
Oh, I will remember it forever.
Yeah, it's ingrained in my memory. Yeah. It was slightly traumatizing for all of us in ways, but also
it's a core memory.
Yeah. I like how Olivia, when we recorded our like birth story with her, she was like, but also we were kind of just like laughing and enjoying ourselves through like all the craziness too. So
it was kind of fun.
Yeah. Even though it was wild, it was fun.
We had a great night.
Yeah. You're like, I'd do it again. That's awesome. But yeah, you're an amazing midwife, but you're also a mom yourself. You have two, I say older boys, but how old are they? They're not that old.
They are 12 and almost 9.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So they're not quite teenagers. It's not craziness yet, but I feel like you're almost getting there.
We're on the brink.
Yeah, that's crazy. But you've been a mom for a while, so I'd love for you to just kind of like introduce you and who you are as a person first, because you found out you're pregnant really young. So like, now you're a home birth midwife. So like, where did that come from? I think you said you worked with a midwife with your first pregnancy, but was it a home birth? Or I've never heard this story, so I'm excited to know more about your first pregnancy.
Oh yeah, so I found out I was pregnant when I was 17. I had just turned 17 not long before I found out I was pregnant. I had just started my senior year of high school, and my mom actually had my older brother outside of the hospital in a birth center. It was like a kind of like a weird birth center, like an 80s birth center situation where there was like a doctor who owned it and like oversaw, but she saw midwives as well.
Nice.
So I had that background, but then I'm a twin, so I was born in the hospital.
I always forget that. So cool.
So she wasn't able to do that when we came along because we were twins. And so I hadn't even really given any thought to having my baby outside of the hospital because she had ingrained in me like how much better her experience was when she had my sister and I. It was just a very fast birth, and like she got to the hospital and we came out naturally within like a few minutes of her being there. And so she kind of like attributed that to the hospital birth was better.
Oh wow, really? That's wild.
Because it, her first one was super long and hard, and
but she was a first-time mom too.
She was just a first-time mom, and so
she's like, having twins in a hospital is way better than a birth center. You're like, what?
That was basically what I had like heard all growing up.
That's so funny.
But so I actually had planned on just like having an OB. But I was 17 and I had Medicaid, and the OB practice that I went to had OBs, and then they had nurse midwives. And when I like called to make my first appointment, I didn't know what I was doing. But I called to make my first appointment, and they were like, oh, you have Medicaid. Well, you have to see the midwives.
Oh, like it's a punishment.
It was the biggest blessing.
Yeah, it ended up being a blessing. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was the biggest blessing.
So
they were like,
go get Medicaid out there. That's the tip to take from this. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they said only the midwives take Medicaid.
Wow,
so if you have Medicaid, and so I kind of attributed that at the time to like
a lower level of care.
Yeah, I thought. So anyway, I was like, okay, fine, I guess. Like, I'll see the midwives. But they ended up being so much better, and they're a little bit different than what I am. And like, they're not as holistic, and they do still like practice in the hospital and stuff. But their anxiety level, I think, just like as far as like birth and like the philosophy and everything goes, was way lower. And I had like questions and asked like, what if I can't do it, and like, what if I can't breastfeed and things like that. And they were just like, oh, you can. Yeah,
I love it. That if I could just summarize the type of care you give now, that's it. Like, don't even worry about that. Like,
you can.
It comes natural. You'll be fine.
So yeah, I saw the midwives. I got to know all of them. There were a few of them. Some of them I really liked more than others, but I thought they were all pretty cool. They were all way cooler than the OBs to me.
Did you ever have to meet OBs or have any appointments with them?
I think I did, like maybe the very first appointment. I like maybe saw both, but the OBs were just like way more uptight, and they weren't as like humble and just like loving and
more rushed probably and stuff.
Way more rushed. So yeah, I actually like really enjoyed the experience seeing them. And I had seen OBs in the past just for like regular care, but I saw them, and then I went into labor, and it was horribly long. Really? It was so long, and I didn't have, a doula there or anything to tell me like, your baby's probably in a weird funky position and help me with that or anything like that. I was just kind of winging it. And so I had a midwife whenever I got to the hospital, who I had never met before. She was like, it's my first day.
Amazing.
And I was like, oh, no, okay. I've never met you before, but she was she had like the most calming energy.
Did you go to the hospital as soon as you were in labor?
No. No, it was like days of, off and on, and I had like prodromal labor, and I thought it was it, and then I went, and they were like, no, you're 2 centimeters, and I went home. They like gave me morphine for some reason. It was 12 years ago. Yeah. I went home. I labored all night long. I went back in. They were like, yeah, you're still 2 centimeters. And that's when I met the midwife who ended up catching my baby. Yeah. And she told me it was her first day, and I was a little concerned, but I didn't really care at that point. I was so sleep deprived. she was awesome. Her husband actually was an OB, and he came in and he said, it may be her first day, but she's amazing. She's the best midwife I know. They like worked in the practice together. And he said she delivered all 5 of our babies all by herself. And I was like, wait, what?
Okay.
You can do that?
Yeah, you're like, I'm writing that one down for my next pregnancy.
So yeah, I had like a pretty good experience. I had to have like Pitocin, and
I was gonna ask if it was like
break
medicated.
my water and everything.
But no epidural?
No, they actually gave me an epidural. I didn't ask for one, but they were like, you should have one, and I said okay, because I didn't know what's going on.
For sure.
But like 6 hours after all of that, he was born, so it worked pretty quickly.
It wasn't like a long drawn out process.
Not after that.
That's good.
So yeah, I felt like I had like a pretty good experience, and then pretty much immediately I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to
really?
I want to be a labor and delivery nurse, or like work and birth in some way. And so I pretty much right away wanted to like start nursing school. I did like the prerequisites for it and everything, and was doing I was just so on fire for like birth work at the time.
While you had a baby?
And I had a baby, yeah.
Wow.
He wasn't a noob. I waited a bit before I started, but not that long.
Yeah, but still, like being fired up for,
I was so fired
nursing
up.
prerequisites with a 1-year-old even is kind of wild.
I mean, I was just like so excited that I had realized a passion for the first time really in my life. And I was so young. I was 18 like a month after he was born. So I am like reading all the books and watching all the documentaries, and it doesn't take long doing all of that to realize that home birth is actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
and I didn't really
awesome.
know anything about it until I started kind of digging in.
So your mom didn't really ever talk about home birth or anything like that, even though she'd worked with midwives?
Not home birth, just birth center birth. Home birth I don't think was even like on her radar, because it was licensed midwives in the 80s there weren't licensed midwives in Florida. That was in the 90s that happened.
Wow.
So yeah, she was able to have an out-of-hospital birth because a doctor, an OB, actually owned the birth
So
center.
wild to think about, like, just the progression of how
Things have
it's
changed.
gotten so much more popular, but it's like still not even like super popular. I feel like it's still such a small subgroup of people who are like really passionate about home birth. Feels so common to us because of the community, we're in and the people we talk to, and so many doulas like do home birth, and it's like so common to us now, but
in
it's
our
really
community,
so taboo kind of still.
I was talking to some midwives recently who had done a little bit of research about like the percentage of babies born by licensed midwives, and I think they said in St. Johns County 2% of babies now are being born outside of the hospital. And then in Jacksonville...
Including birth center? Just outside of the hospital?
I think including birth center,
okay.
And then in Jacksonville, we're like approaching 2%. Whenever I started, I think it was like 1% or less.
Wow.
When I like got into the whole like birth field, it was 1% or less in Jacksonville at least. And then... so things have grown so much. It's almost doubled.
It's
wild.
Still
very low.
Well, and I mean, but Jacksonville has millions of people, so even, just a couple percent and seeing it rise.
Oh my gosh.
Every percent matters a lot. That's like thousands of people.
It's crazy. It really is crazy. Because actually when I first moved to Jacksonville, I think there were around 400,000 people living in either Jacksonville or Duval County, which is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And then now there's about 1 million. I think there's like over 1 million.
Okay, when I said millions, I'm like,
I mean, in the area.
Yeah, Northeast Florida is just so massive and growing every day.
Yeah.
It's like they've just built an apartment complex and then like 10,000 people move here like overnight. It's crazy.
Like
yeah, it's growing a ton. But that's so cool. Well, you're part of that movement, like, I mean, because I think, and I talked about this with Amberly on the last episode, but it's like once people see home birth and experience it, it's like you can't unsee it. You're like, oh, it happens so beautifully and naturally, and it's actually not that crazy. Like I think when people hear home birth, they just think it's like this super crunchy, hippie, weird thing that like you try to do it may or may not work, but like it's very well thought out. I remember in my first appointment, like as the veil was being lifted over like my face to be able to see all of like this new perspective, I asked you probably at my very first appointment, like, I mean, do you bring like oxygen? Like, do you have everything like we would need? And maybe, I don't know, maybe someone's listening to this and thinking home birth still just sounds absolutely wild. But like, I'm sure you hear those objections kind of like all the time, but you have everything you need, literally as if you just set up an OB room. Yeah. You just don't have the OR.
Yeah, people don't know that. That's why we do the free consultations.
Yeah, because they have a million questions.
People don't know, and that's why we have all of that on our website too, because a lot of people come in and they're like, I had no idea, like until I looked at your website, that you guys bring everything. Most of the time we just set it all up, and then we don't have to use hardly any of it, and then we just break it all back down and bring it back home. But we just don't have an OR, which it's fine, because in Jacksonville we've got 15 hospitals here, so no one that lives here is like really that far from a hospital anyway.
Yeah, you can get there pretty fast. I would know.
Everyone in you would know.
It's really not that bad.
Everyone in Jacksonville lives close to a hospital. It's different in like more rural areas, but in Florida we do have a law where you have to be within 30 minutes of a hospital to like qualify. In Jacksonville, nobody lives more than 30 minutes away.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then for your second pregnancy, how did that go? Were you like midwife all the way? Did you go back to the same practice or
no?
No.
No, I was like so ready to have another baby by then.
I guess you were researching all this and excited and felt much more empowered. And
I knew I was going to have a home birth. Yeah. I was so excited for that. Heck so I want to say it was like a year after he was born that I was like, I want to have another one. It was like 3 years later that I actually gave birth. But
it does take time and stuff, you know.
But I was so ready, and I was like really young too. So waiting wasn't
no rush.
No, I was 20 whenever I got pregnant the second time, and then I was 21 when I gave birth.
That's awesome. So how was your home birth?
It was incredible.
Did you love your midwives and stuff? Because you didn't live here, right?
I didn't live here. I lived about an hour and a half southwest of here. I had Medicaid again. I was only 20 and broke, and I didn't even know that like most midwives don't take Medicaid. So it was never even a thought in my mind, like, because you may not even be able to find a midwife to do this.
Because last time they're like, oh, you have Medicaid, so you have to, like see the midwife. This time you're like, I hope I can see a midwife with Medicaid. That's wild.
It never even crossed my mind. Now I'm like, wow, I was blessed to find a practice that like did a home birth for me and didn't charge me anything. Like, I don't think I would have been able to afford anything.
Oh yeah.
I had no money.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I immediately looked into home birth because I was so excited. I mean, oh my gosh, I was so excited. As soon as I got a positive pregnancy test, I was like online.
Started setting up at your house.
Oh my gosh, I like bought cloth diapers. I was like, I'm gonna be the crunchiest mom. But so I waited a bit before I actually like hired one. It took me we didn't have any in the small town that I lived in. So I hired a practice in Gainesville. And they right away said, yeah, we'll drive over there. And, we'd love to help you. I reached out to a few different midwives, and it was also just like, things are not the same now as they were at the time. Most midwives at the time, like, they didn't have office managers and like people answering their phones and stuff like that.
It was just a lady shows up, just a lady delivers your baby.
Yeah, that's which awesome. Is like such like classic midwifery. But so I found a practice in Gainesville that like answered an email. Oh, because I was too scared to call.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Yeah, because you're young. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it all just felt like so surreal. But I didn't really start care, I think, until I was closer to 20 weeks. Because I don't know, I just didn't know. Like,
did they come to your house, or did you have to go to Gainesville?
They had an office in Gainesville, so I drove over there every time I had an appointment. And my appointments were like 2 hours every time I would go over there, which now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
So but they have like 6 people in the waiting room.
They didn't even have a waiting room.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It was like such a cool little like rickety staircase, like going up
classic.
yeah, it was very classic.
That's awesome.
So I had an amazing experience. It was a group of midwives, and it was just night and day from what I had experienced with my first pregnancy. And I definitely I was a little nervous about like the actual home birth part, because I doubted my body a little bit from the first time, because it was just like I needed at the time they were like, you need Pitocin.
Yeah, they told you needed it.
Yeah, like I needed all the stuff to like make my baby come out. And so I had some fears. I was a little nervous and, anxious about like, what if that happens again? Like, what if I have to transfer to the hospital? Or like, what if it hurts too bad? It was really painful the first time with my, I'm assuming, malpositioned baby. And so, all of that was in my head a little bit. But as soon as I went into labor, I had this calm come over me, and I just knew like things are different this time. I could tell. And
amazing.
He just came out. It was great. It was like my ideal labor. It was exactly how I had like envisioned it the entire pregnancy. It was exactly what I wanted to happen. Like I had a longer early labor, and it was very gentle. And
you love the midwife that showed up, and it was just what you always dreamed of?
So actually the actual midwife that showed up, I hadn't seen a whole lot. And so she was the one that I was like, well, I haven't really built a relationship with her. And it was completely fine.
Yeah, like
people,
they're just there to deliver your baby. It's all pretty fast, and they know what they're doing. So,
but there was a student that they had, and she was a huge part of my care. And so when she showed up, she actually got there first. Yeah, and I was so happy to see her.
Yeah, it's almost like having a doula.
Yeah,
you had like extra set of hands and extra perspective.
It was so great, and
someone you knew a little more than your midwife.
I knew her so well at that. I felt like I had, because oh my gosh, my appointments were like 2 hours.
Yeah, like I spent so much time.
We
with
would
you.
just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah.
She was at most of my appointments, and I was so happy to see her there. And the other midwife, it was actually her very last management, like as a student. It was her very last one, and it ended up being me.
That's awesome.
And so the other midwife that I didn't know as well, just like she stood back, she just like totally let the student do everything, and it all was awesome. Yeah, but they were, I think they were there for like 3 hours before I gave birth, and
nice.
Yeah, it was really great.
Just like a second birth would go, a second, pregnancy, how it would end, just nice and smooth. That's what we're going for, It's just a nice, smooth process. The second time around, because I feel like you kind of know what to expect and things, but you did have some of that like doubt and fear come up. And I know when we were chatting about, what you're super passionate about, talking to clients and patients. You call them patients, right? You call them patient?
Or clients like
patients. I don't know. Okay. Sometimes I'm like, wait, is that the right word? I don't know. But either way, do you have to answer that often? I mean, I'm sure fear and stuff comes up where people are like, I'm not going to have medicine. What if it hurts too much? Like some of those things are going through your mind. I'm sure that's given you, such a great perspective to speak from, because you walked through some of that. So what do you say to those like patients or clients who like doubt themselves?
Yeah, I honestly feel lucky, like that I was able to experience exactly what because so many people have long, hard, first births in the hospital. They're traumatic, and I have the experience and I'm just able to tell them, I totally went through that too. It can be different. And the second time, it almost always is different, and especially when you're like, planning for a home birth, and you're like taking care of your body, and you're doing all of the things, and you're like, just mindful about not just winging it like I did the first time.
Well, and I feel like that's what a lot of people do. They find out they're pregnant, they feel like they've gone to appointments, they feel like they've prepared, but I feel like a lot of people may not even go to the chiropractor or do things that can really help their body be in a really great position to have a really great birth.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Like, what are some intentional things you tell people to do? Probably everything is on all 17 of my checklists that I have.
Surely, yes.
But what are some of the most important things? Like, if there's someone that is experiencing fear right now, you know, because their due date's getting closer and they don't know if they've, you know, kind of done some of those things. What are some things you suggest?
Well, yeah, the chiropractor is like always number one. But outside of the chiropractor, there is such a balance between like doing too much and then like not doing enough.
Yeah.
So usually we'll tell people one of the best things you can do is take a good maternity leave. Do it before, like well before your due date. Don't try to work right up until you go into labor, because your mindset, like psychologically, is probably even more important than like your physical stuff.
Totally. Yeah, y'all were hard on me about that. Because I was thinking I was just like Wonder Woman or something. And I own my own business, and it's like mostly online and stuff like that. It's not like where I'm like on my feet all day or something like that. So I was thinking, I mean, I just have conversations, run some Zoom meetings and stuff, but you're right. It's like literally, you know, people talk about like masculine and feminine parts of your brain, or just, you know, you need to be so far in your feminine and oxytocin, not like goal setting, goal oriented, achieving, like checking things off your professional to-do list. Like, you really just need to be more in tune with your body and stuff. And that was something you kind of like opened my eyes to. I'm like, oh, it's like that important. Oh.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't seem like your job is hard until you're like 36, 37 weeks.
Like, I can't even think about this right now.
Yeah, like suddenly you're in your birth window, and like any day you could go into labor.
Yeah.
And doing any other, you know, work is like not even just physical work, but like emotional or like taking care of, you know, other clients, or like talking to people outside of just
your partner,
your
and midwives.
It becomes a huge chore.
Yeah, it's true.
So a lot of people need to just kind of turn inward during that time and work on, like, you know, psychologically just being within their own home and like with their own kids and like their partner, and like preparing their space and things like that. Also, as far as like working goes, it doesn't really matter what kind of job you have. Like some people have really hard, laborious jobs, but most women honestly don't. Like most women are like sitting in an office or something like that. And even that is really hard when you're about to give birth. You need to
be moving. You need to like just prioritize other things. Yeah, it's true.
So give
yourself the space to even prioritize those things. Yeah, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, we tell people, you know, don't be a couch potato. But at the same time, don't wear yourself out, because every night could be like, you may only get 2 hours of sleep. You may wake up in the middle of the night in labor and you may miss a whole night of sleep. So make sure you're taking all of the naps and like nourishing yourself and staying hydrated and like living a very slow, gentle life. But also, you probably want to take like a mile walk every day and like make sure you're moving your body and not just like laying around doing nothing. So it's a very fine line.
For sure. And I feel like we live in such a fast-paced culture, you know, that if you don't give yourself space to like have that type of intention, then it's hard to find that balance, because it is such a fine line. If you're waking up and you know you have to work 9 to 5, it's like, of course you're not really planning for a walk or planning for a nap, because you're just like, sorry, that's my schedule. So
and I don't think you probably shouldn't plan for anything extra if you're having to do that, because that becomes too much.
And I don't think really, I don't know, I haven't seen an OB. I've only had one baby and it was with midwives, but I don't think most OB practices or like standard care really prepares women's minds like that. I think that's what I loved most about working with a midwife, even though I did end up transferring and having a C-section. Like, there were moments as I was processing everything and healing where I'm like, should I have just gone to a freaking OB from the start, you know? But I think the psychological aspect immediately, like anytime that thought would even creep in my mind, I'm like, no, I would walk through it with you guys 100 times over. And just because of that, like, you could prepare me mentally and emotionally and help me for months prepare for the last few weeks, you know, whereas I think it's kind of like an afterthought when you're in standard care and like our Western culture.
OBs don't
talk about anything like
they
that.
don't mention anything like that, because I mean, they see it as like not their job. Like, take a childbirth education class if you want to learn something like that. OBs, they spend 3 minutes on average with you.
Wow.
Whenever you go in for an appointment.
3 minutes?
On average, 3 minutes.
That's crazy.
So they really don't have the time to talk about anything
or mental
like
space or education or anything.
Or the education.
You know?
I mean, their education is like so extensive, but it's mostly because they're learning like surgical stuff
and like medicine, like the practice of medicine, which is crazy. Because I'm never here to like talk bad about OBs, but it really is just crazy to understand the difference. Like, these are the types of questions I had at first, because I'm like, am I just being like ultra weird and crunchy for wanting a home birth? But when you start to like peel back the layers, you're like, well, if I personally don't want surgery and I wasn't planning for surgery, why would I go to someone who's specifically trained in medicine if I know I would much rather go the natural route and have someone walk through, you know, all of the, I would say, arguably harder parts, which is reprioritizing your life and changing your mindsets and surrendering to like all of these changes in your body. Like, I would say that is even more challenging than some of the physical things you walk through in pregnancy. So talking to them, you're like, true, that's why I'm a midwife. But so I think, you know, I just think walking through with a midwife just makes so much more sense if that's what, you know,
if that's the path you're going down.
Yeah, sure.
Not everybody cares about any of that or like has the mental space to think about any of that stuff, or even just wants to.
Because it's just much more of like a holistic perspective. You know, some people, I guess just go into looking at it so physical, like, how do I get this baby out, what's gonna happen, period. Like, just tell me that only. But becoming a mother is such a holistically life-changing thing. Every part of your life, like literally every category changes. So I stand by my decision clearly to, you know, walk through with a midwife that, you know, just knows about these things and takes the time. I mean, like you were talking about in your pregnancy, even though I had no complications and like throughout my whole pregnancy, no risk at all, we would pretty much stay for the whole hour every time and talk about every category of my life, you know, and kind of prepare me for all of that. So I think that's a really powerful way of caring for women.
I mean, in fact, almost none of our clients have like major things going on because they're healthy. Like, they've got normal pregnancies going on. Their babies are healthy. So most of them don't have major issues to talk about. And that's not why we schedule out, you know, seeing people for an entire hour every time. Most of the time when we're seeing people for a whole hour, we're talking about the extra stuff. Like, you know, what are you doing tomorrow? How are you planning for your maternity leave? And like, you know, talking about like the baby in the future and things like that, and just kind of like getting to know each other.
For sure.
So most people aren't having any like major issues who are seeing us.
That makes sense.
But on the flip side, a lot of people have major issues who are seeing OBs and they're still only being seen for 3 minutes.
That's crazy, actually, when you put it that way. That's definitely wild. And it's good to get to know you and feel like you understand our life, and because you show up, not you or any of your other amazing midwives at your office show up in such a vulnerable moment, whereas if you've only spent a few minutes here and there, especially most OB practices have multiple OBs, or like you guys have multiple midwives, you know, it's like if you really only see them for a few minutes and now you're in this super vulnerable situation, of course people feel scared or, you know, like I think that would definitely invite in like fear and insecurities and things like that. Whereas like halfway through the pregnancy, I felt like you're already my best friends. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, if any of these women show up, it'll be great because they're all my friends. So like, that's kind of,
that's the whole idea.
That's the point. Yeah.
And you know, you don't become like best friends with all of your clients. Like some of it, you don't mesh with everyone in that way, but that's the idea. Like that's always the goal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this right now is the longest time we've spent together without anybody else. So it's not like we're actual best friends, but it just feels so comfortable because we have spent uninterrupted time in obviously more like professional setting, like in your office, just talking about like what are our passions and what our priorities are, because you care and you ask, and so we get to open up and have like vulnerable conversations before you show up in vulnerable moments.
Exactly. So. We've had so many conversations.
Yeah, I know. I actually
we've covered hours of conversation.
It's funny. I think I mentioned this in another episode, but I would sometimes even get on to Alex and like, I know it's so fun talking to them, like no matter who we saw, whether it's you or one of your other midwives, but I'm like, let's try to at least like keep it on pregnancy and on the baby. He's like, what? I was just telling him about blah, blah, blah and our dog. And I'm like, that's great. And honestly, it was a fine conversation, but next time let's just try to maximize their expertise, you know? It's so funny. But
it ends up being like that with a lot of people because we just like, we mesh so well and like the conversation is just so genuine and like comes so naturally that we end up talking about like I start telling you about myself and
which is great. And sometimes I would even be like, did I ask her about her pregnancy? Like what is going on, you know? Like because we'd start talking about you naturally because I'm now curious because we're exchanging information. That's a natural flow of conversation. But then I'm like, was I supposed to do that? Like, wait, were we talking about her? I think I should. I don't know, because it just happens so naturally where it does just feel like you're hanging out with a friend, not like a provider that's like so rigid and fast and they have a checklist and then they're out. You know, it's just much more comfortable, which is amazing. So
yeah, my clients end up learning a lot about me too.
That's awesome. I love it. One thing that, and I think I mentioned this in our birth story, but it's only right to bring it up now because you were the one that said it. But when in our very first appointment, like one of my priorities and one of my main like questions, because I interviewed consultation, whatever, with you guys first. So you were the first midwife I ever talked to about my birth. But people were like, you should still like interview a couple. So I think it was one or two other consultations, even though I'm like, I'm pretty much just going to go with Modern Midwives. But I was just like, even if this shows me even more so why I want them, I just felt like, you know, maybe I should
important to
interview others.
To talk to everybody.
Yeah. But something that you said that sealed the deal for me, because one of the things I had written on my list of questions for people I was going to ask is, when the baby comes out, what does that moment look like in your practice? Because I have always seen, you know, social media is a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. But I'd always seen like this undisturbed, just like the baby arrives on the mother's chest and it's like this beautiful moment. And I've worked as a doula just with close friends and family members in a hospital setting. And there's a lot of aggression that happens sometimes, which of course babies at times need stimulation. And like, I understand there's protocol and there's a reason for all those kind of things. So I'm not here to talk mess about the reasons I'm sure they have, but at the same time, that's not always very necessary, but the aggressive rubbing and like the towels and everything start happening so quickly. And that's like one thing I just did not want. I'm like, I just want a moment. If we need to, you know, stimulate the baby and all of that after, like I understand, but that was one thing I asked him, like, so what does that moment look like? And you said, I mean, if my gloves don't even get dirty, I think that would be great. You can handle it all. And I was like, I love you. Immediately I was like, that's my midwife. That was the moment I was looking for. So where did that like passion and perspective come from? Was it like when you first started looking into home birth, was that like a moment you became passionate about, like the undisturbed moment of mom like meeting her baby, or was that over time as you started to see it happen?
Yeah, that was with experience as a midwife. That never really crossed my mind when I first started.
Yeah, the way you answered so confidently, I'm like, dang, that's like her mojo.
Yeah, I am sure I was not thinking about that when I first started like looking into home birth and like had a home birth myself. I know that whenever I had my own home birth, I never thought like, don't touch me, and like let me just do it on my own or anything like that. I wanted a home birth and to like stay out of the system and like not have all the interventions and things like that.
Right.
But over time, when I first started, you know, like as a student and like started going to birth, I saw a lot of, you know, very hands-on births, and I was pretty hands-on, you know, as well, like as a student when I was learning. And but yeah, over time I realized that most babies are gonna come out just fine, whether we're like touching or not. So just with experience, sometimes I don't even put gloves on anymore. Like,
that's amazing.
So sometimes I'm like, I have some here, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to need to touch you. So
that's amazing.
Let me just watch this happen. But yeah, I really am so passionate about that. I love just like being a lifeguard, and that's that's the only way I can really explain it. Like just kind of being there, witnessing. As long as everything is great, then we don't need to poke or prod. I don't need to like take your baby from you. I don't need to like pull your baby out of you. All of the maneuvers that you learn, you know, in midwifery school and OB school, I'm sure, to deliver a baby, it doesn't need to happen most of the time. Sometimes it does, and it's great to know, like all of the different maneuvers and like the traction that needs to happen and things like that to get a baby's shoulders born, or like a head, that like stubborn head to come out, or anything like that. But I really think it comes with experience, just knowing when we need to step in and do that.
Like those things arise, but that shouldn't be like the normal or standard.
It's not routine. It doesn't have to be routine.
Yeah,
because most babies are just gonna come on out.
Well, and I think that's the interesting part about just like hospital birth, which again, I'm not here to talk badly about them. A hospital birth saved my life, you know, and so I'm grateful that we do have Western medicine. But I think what's crazy is just how like routine it is for them to just start doing things. And like, just like I had said, like when a baby comes on a mother's chest, even if they had an unmedicated perfect birth and everything's going great, it's just immediate interventions just kind of like start, you know. So I love the perspective that you ladies have of just like, first of all, in those long appointments, like really asking, what do you want us to do? How much do you want us to be involved? But then also just allowing the process to just happen and only stepping in when necessary. It's just so crazy that that's not normal, you know, or standard. And
in the hospital setting, everyone has their role. Everyone like there's certain like protocols for everything, and it's all very routine. And you know, like once the baby comes out, there's one person who's like stimulating the baby. They do that with every single baby. It doesn't really matter like how the baby's doing or anything like that. Like that's the very first thing that they do. And then it kind of depends on like which hospital you go to and who the OB is and things like that. But in a lot of places it's routine to go ahead and like suction every single baby. And we honestly, the stimulation and then suction, those are the first two steps of neonatal resuscitation. And most babies don't need to be resuscitated.
That's such a good perspective.
Yeah, we're not really needing to like start resuscitation on a baby because stimulation that's the first step of neonatal resuscitation. And why would we start that step if the baby is fine and doesn't need it?
Yeah, that's true. So like when a baby comes out, I'm also just curious because I love this whole process, and you just can tell based on their breathing, and just you assess and just see how they're doing before you do anything, before you even put your gloves on.
Yeah, and that also like comes with experience, which most I would say people like in their student career will learn this pretty quickly. Like when a baby is born, you can just immediately tell this baby is doing great. Like the color, it's like, you know, you give them an APGAR score. 100%. Internally, I may not be thinking like, what's the APGAR here? But those are still the main points. Like, what's the color of the baby? Like, is the baby crying, or is the baby like trying to cry? Are we like alert? Does the baby have great tone?
So these are all things you can see before you're stepping in.
Yeah, and I'll usually, feel the little cord and see like what the baby's pulse is. And I may not even do that right away if the baby's like screaming.
Yeah, you're like,
because
we're good.
I know it's gonna be okay. But yeah, so if the picture is good, then there's no reason to start neonatal resuscitation.
It's true.
Which stimulation and bulbing, like suctioning a baby, those are the first steps.
Yeah.
So.
And this is also the first 10 to 30 seconds of a baby's life, So if they're just waking up and just breathing for the first time, like giving them a little space is okay.
Give them some space. Yeah, not every baby is going to be born like screaming. And sometimes that's okay too. There are, again, with experience, if a baby's not born, crying, then like, how's the baby's tone, or like what color is the baby, and like what's the baby's heart rate right now? If those things are good, then maybe we give the baby a couple minutes to like come around, or like some gentle stimulation.
Yeah, just ease your way into all of the
we don't have to like immediately go nuts on this baby.
Yeah, that's how it feels like when I see other births. It's just like baby's out, and then like boom, things are happening. There's hands, there's towels, there's suctions. It's just like so much happening at once.
And babies need a moment sometimes, just like the moms need a moment to like come around and realize what has just happened.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's life literally happening, like being created in the moment.
Yeah.
Such a special thing that you get to witness all the time. It's so beautiful. I love it.
It's pretty amazing.
Well, I would say now more than ever, I'm so excited for a home birth and to like actually achieve this long goal I've had for years now. And I want to shift gears for a second, because something else you're passionate about is helping women prepare for postpartum. And that's, I will say, and I'm not here to trash talk OBs, but just reflecting on a lot of people's care and even friends and family I've had, and then, what I received. It's not always really talked about that, like you're going through this massive hormonal shift and things. So what are some things you tell women to like prepare for postpartum? I know there's different like rules, or kind of just like, not rules, but I just mean kind of like mental rules and boundaries that you help people kind of keep in mind as they prepare for their first, whether it's the 40 days, I know there's the infamous book, The First 40 Days, or, that first just sensitive period of either becoming a mom, or even after a second, third, fifth child, like it's still such a vulnerable time.
Yeah. I guess you could say like the first 40 days or like the 5-5-5 thing, what we always tell people, and I'm always surprised that like when we do have a hospital transfer, those moms are not told anything before they leave the hospital. I will get to their house like the day after they come home, and they're walking around and doing all the things and like lifting things and doing chores and like doing the dishes and so they're not being told at all what to expect or like what to do once you get home, and probably because either they don't care or they don't know, like the staff at the hospital, that's just not what they're thinking about at all. So usually what we tell people is the very first week postpartum, and we just say like a week, like you could say 5 days, but I go ahead and round it up.
The first 2 days don't even count.
Round it up to a week. You really want to be, what I say is, on bed rest with bathroom privileges. So you don't have to like pee in a bedpan or anything, but you really just want to hang out in your bed, do mostly like laying around. You can, get up and use the bathroom every couple of hours, go take a shower if you need to, but really just be mostly on bed rest, hang out in your room with your baby, and don't like walk around your house.
And is that mostly for physical reasons, or also just like mental, emotional, spiritual reasons as well? All of the above, probably? All
of the above, but honestly it is mostly for physical reasons, because the pelvic floor cannot handle like walking around
it's a lot.
after something like that. we always hear our like moms and grandmas say, after you have a baby, you're gonna have to wear a pad for the rest of your life because every time you jump, every time you sneeze, every time you cough, you're gonna pee your pants.
That's not normal.
And that is not normal at all. It's just, it's been so common in our like older generations because no one was told that the pelvic floor cannot handle getting up and even like walking around after giving birth. It's like, we can't be doing that.
Yeah, you were just stretched and changed so much. Like it takes time for those tissues to repair.
Yeah, I mean, they're like all out of place, and like the uterus especially has stretched so much during pregnancy. Those ligaments have stretched so much, and the ligaments are what actually keep it where it's supposed to be. And once the baby is out of there, everything is very loose and flopping, and most people will notice like after giving birth, if you're trying to walk around, you feel very breathless and empty, and like your diaphragm is like sinking down, and everything just feels like super out of place. And it's because we're really not supposed to be walking around. It's horrible for your pelvic floor. So that's the first week, is we tell people just like be on bed rest, really. And then the second week, the key word is like lounging. So I say, you can go to other parts of your house, or like go sit outside if you want to. Like go sit in your living room, go sit around, like just lounge around your house. You still don't want to do any kind of chores, no cooking, no cleaning, no lifting anything heavier than the baby. So for the whole first 2 weeks, I want people to just chill. And that feels like easy to say, or easy to like plan for. And then most women, after like a couple of days in bed, are like, I feel great. Like, I don't know what she's talking about. That was a crazy recommendation because I feel amazing. And then they get up and they start walking around, and then they're like, hey, my uterus feels like it's coming out of my vagina.
You're like, it probably is, actually.
So yeah, I mean, the whole idea is that we're trying to keep you feeling great throughout.
Stay on that track.
And you're gonna feel great if you're doing all this. You're gonna feel awesome. It's just whenever
stay in it for the long game.
It's whenever you start like getting up and doing too much because you felt great and you felt like, my pelvic floor feels fine, my vagina feels great, like what's the problem? That's when people get up and they start doing too much. They bleed a whole lot more, and then end up having like the pelvic floor issues
that stick around for actual years after. Like it could take a lot of time.
Your life.
It could take a lot of time to repair.
I mean, if you're not having like extensive pelvic floor physical therapy, or even sometimes for like severe cases surgery, then this is something that you could die with. Like this could be the rest of your life. And that's why like we hear even our grandmas, it's been probably 50 years since she's had a baby, and she still is wearing a pad.
Wow. That's crazy to think about, because I think, especially again in our culture that is so fast paced and things, people just think, oh, it's fine, and oh, I'm going back to work, and oh, my husband went back to work, so I have to this. Like planning for help, learning to ask for help, those are all things you have to start to prepare your mind for months before, because it's hard to like ask for help in vulnerable situations.
And I mean, a lot of people don't have that help just naturally, so they have to like kind of like hire people or like create that support system. And I mean, paternity leave is something fairly new. Like grandma didn't have a husband with paternity leave.
No way.
And maternity leave as well. Like she probably also didn't get maternity leave if she was working. So that stuff is all really fairly new to like society. Before that, or like Western society, other cultures have been doing this forever. But we definitely in the U.S. we've only just kind of started to like get time off for after giving birth, and like the dad now gets some like paid time off. Dad never got that before. Dad always had to like go to work the next day.
Yeah.
So you know, of course they had like all these other kids to take care of, and so it was just, things were different at the time, and they didn't have the support. But in other cultures, you know, the first 40 days or however long was like all the women banded together and like helped.
Well, in so many other cultures, there's so much more community. You have your aunts and your grandmas and people who come together and know you're about to go through this big change. And in, you know, our Western world, we're so isolated and individualized and stuff. So isolated. In such a vulnerable time where you're going through the hormonal shifts, the mental shifts, all your prioritizing. And I always just say, like, your brain literally turning inside out as a new human with a baby attached to you constantly.
So true.
To not have that type of cultural support, or that not be the norm, is a lot. You know, you have to really plan for it, or meal prep yourself, or like you said, hire help if needed, or like really have hard conversations with your mom or mother-in-law or sister-in-law, like, can you come over a couple times a week, or can you please, you know, help me organize a meal train, or like really think ahead. Don't be like, it'll be fine, I'll get it, I think I'll be good, because you are until you're not, and then you're stressed.
So hard for women in like our society to ask for help, because we're supposed to be, you know, in this new like feminist culture, like we're supposed to like be able to do it all and like not need any help, and if you need help it's like a sign of weakness. And you know, I've definitely experienced that myself, just being like, no, like I can do it, I got it, I don't need any help, like I'm a great mom, like
well, and I don't think I ever, you know, nobody really like says that, but that's just kind of like how we, you know, like how our culture is right now. Because I remember even myself, I wouldn't say that have a hard time asking for help. I never thought of that. But when you are in such a vulnerable state and you don't even know what you need and things, unless someone's like, hey, you want me to just finish up the dishes, or you have people willing to offer and like showing up for you, knowing that you're going through a lot, and just like planning to just do things for you, it is very hard to ask. You're just looking at your pile of dishes or thinking about making dinner and you just want to cry. You know, like it does just seem like so much. And that's something that that's one, like, I don't know, maybe like takeaway tip that I could give someone that I've heard you guys talk about, and also just then I like experienced it myself, and I was like, oh, I see, is like having food ready, which seems so trivial, or
seems so, like,
so
such a small
easy
thing.
But honestly, like my husband, and of course I wouldn't say I'm necessarily grateful for exactly how my birth panned out, and like healing from surgery was really intense in so many ways, but it forced me to rest where I really had no choice. I could not overdo it because I literally could barely stand up, and you know, it's just a whole different healing process. And so I'm really grateful for my husband, because he was literally cooking me every meal. He specifically made sure he took more time off than he originally planned. Like there was things that we were forced to do the right way, which probably should have been how I healed anyways, but now we like have that perspective. And we were like looking at how much protein I was taking in. If I was feeling really emotional, be like, wait, what did you eat today? Like he would kind of help me in that way. And it was a great perspective. And there were times where if I was feeling super emotional or just really overwhelmed, you know, you go through little phases, I would say overall postpartum, I think I did pretty good, but there are obviously like really challenging moments, and I was always like, wait, what did I have I hadn't really have lunch. You know, it was like any time that I wasn't even just fed, like that's when I was at my mental capacity of just not being able to handle all the other things you have to do as a mom, and figuring out breastfeeding, and now the baby's crying, and now I'm just so overstimulated. Well, it's like because I don't even have the nutrients I need. So even just keeping yourself fed, and like making sure there's almost someone else on watch, because now your brain is like in survival mode to take care of another human. So I think it's easy to forget to take care of yourself. So assigning someone to yourself, be like, can you make sure I eat? Can you make sure there's meals? Can you just check in with me and make sure my water bottle's full, or whatever that is, whether it's someone stopping by or if your partner's, you know, with you for a certain amount of time. I think that is something I learned was so important that I didn't even realize I would need so much. But like literally just being fed and hydrated is like the key.
And you can't really like know that you're going to need that unless someone tells you. Or you experience yourself.
Seems normal. You're like, yeah, of course I'm going to eat.
Yeah, like I've always done it my whole life. So.
So I've always done it my whole life.
I tell people all the time that it actually is like really easy to take care of a newborn. Like that's not the hard part. It's taking care of yourself and a newborn.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
having someone there to take care of you so that you can take care of the baby is huge.
Totally.
It's huge, and it's so needed because otherwise like it's very hard to do both.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
very, very hard to do both. You got a good one that really.
I know. I feel
waited
really
on you hand and foot.
I really feel blessed, honestly, because that was just crazy. I ended up also just like tracking my food and stuff. Some people probably think I'm like a crazy person. Like when I tell people, yeah, I track everything I eat and stuff, they're like, what? You don't just eat intuitively? I need to know and I need to see it. So like I remember after we came home from the hospital, I was like feeling wild, you know, for a lot of reasons, I'm sure, but I was just like, I don't know, I don't think I'm doing great all of a sudden. Like my mind like felt fuzzy and stuff. And my husband's like, wait, what have you had? And you know, in our mind, I was thinking, well, I need protein, so drink like a bone broth or something, or a protein shake, or like I was thinking obviously protein's important for healing, but then your brain needs carbs and we need energy. So I'm like, I need to, you know, like have whatever it was, I don't know, like oatmeal or whatever. And then there was a moment when I was having this, I don't want to say mental breakdown, when I was like, I don't know, babe, like I'm just really not feeling good. And he's like, let me just track what you've had today. Because I track what I eat almost every day in MyFitnessPal, but that I hadn't because I'd been in the hospital, you know. And he grabbed my phone and looked and just plugged in what I'd had, and I'd had like no fat. Because I kept being like, I need protein. Oh, I don't think I've had carbs. My head hurts. And just like protein and carbs for some reason were like all that was on my mind. But like good, healthy fats for breast milk, for your brain is like so important. So we started putting like ghee in my bone broth and, you know, like having all these healthy fats. And I was like, felt so much better. So it's just crazy that some women are just kind of eating what sounds good, or you know, a lot of people are finally ready for that raw tuna that they've been waiting to have their whole pregnancy, and like some of that doesn't serve your digestion very well, and there's other things you should plan to eat much more intentionally and like make sure you're just getting just the nutrients you need to feel your best, so you're not expending energy trying to break down terrible food or fast food, or you know what I mean, different things like that.
During breastfeeding it's even harder because you need more calories when you're breastfeeding. And that's another thing that I think is lost on most people, that we're not just like going on a diet as soon as this baby, like trying to lose all the baby weight. I definitely did that with my first baby, just as a teenager, not knowing, you know, how important it was to feed myself. I thought, well, now's the time. Like I'm losing this weight right now. So that's another thing that, you know, just comes with like counseling. You need roughly on average 300 extra calories per day when you're pregnant, and then you need about 500 extra calories per day.
More than the 500, more than the 300.
500 more than just normal
baseline,
pre-pregnancy baseline. So it's an extra couple hundred calories that you need even like before.
Yeah, that's wild. Nobody knows that or talks about it.
Nobody talks about that. But like, you need even more nutrients. It's even harder to like feed yourself and make sure that you're getting not only just the calories that you need, but like all the different food groups and the, you know, vitamins and minerals, and it's even harder. And now you've got a baby to like take care of, and so all of that was way easier when you're pregnant. And also during pregnancy, like you're having cravings and
you can kind of eat whatever.
You're eating all kinds of stuff. Your body's telling you what to eat, and now suddenly all your brain can think about is like keep the baby alive.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, did I eat? Which is crazy because before I was pregnant, I used to be the kind of person who'd be like, wait, did I have lunch? I don't know, and just have a bigger dinner then, or just accidentally skip breakfast and not even think about it. But once I was pregnant, I was like, first of all, just accountable to myself. Like, okay, I'm growing a human, but also like I was so much hungrier. So I think just like being in tune with that. And I think that's something that's also so important with like the 40 days of rest and stuff, as I've read that book specifically, but even just in conversations through group and stuff, is when you take that time to not only bond with your baby, but allow your body to rest and not rush back into everyday things, even grocery shopping or just like things that may even just seem not that hard. But when you're doing so many task-oriented things soon after birth, within 30 days, not just a few days, but within 30 days, you aren't as intuitive with what your body would need, or why I was, maybe if I was just so busy, I would just think, oh, like postpartum is wild and just keep moving. What I need to slow down and be like, what have I eaten? Let me, write it all down. Let me like take the time to like have that much intention. I think had so much to do with like the recovery postpartum. And if you rush back into stuff, you can't do that.
I love that you did that. That's like just taking that extra step and like taking care of yourself, and even just like thinking about yourself still, because a lot of people don't think that they need anything after having and that's just so, that's like the way that we're hardwired. Like we're, as a mother, we immediately flip the switch from like, I'm taking care of myself and like it's just me, to I have to keep the baby alive. Like, so I really love that you guys were so intentional about that after you had your baby. I was so impressed.
I will say, I think I honestly, I don't know, maybe it would have come natural in other ways if I would have had a vaginal birth, but I think maybe if you have such a smooth birth, maybe it would have been easier for me to think like, oh, then everything else is going to just keep going great, whereas I was kind of almost like in crisis mode, like we have to do this right. And so I think that gave me a lot of passion to like make sure. I remember, I think it was probably like my 2-week appointment, and then maybe again even at my 6-week appointment, when I'm like, can I start like doing a little bit of stretching or a little walking? And then I think I saw one of the other midwives at my 6-week appointment. They're like, no, not yet. And I'm just like, these midwives are so mean. I'm just kidding. No, you actually care, and you like were holding me accountable to not overdo it, because I had surgery, but also I feel like it probably would have been the same no matter what. It's like, no, just respect your body and your boundaries. Just take it slow. I think there was one time because I used to do a lot of yoga and stuff, and I was on like in my bed still, resting a lot, healing from surgery. I was like, I just want to do a few like cat cows, I just really wanted to like get a little stretch in, even though y'all told me not to. I'm like, I'm not going to push it, but I would just want to move my body a little bit. And I did. And the first time I like literally let my belly like kind of drop, and so I'm like, this is why they said not to do it. Like, I'm done. immediately no. And I wasn't like anything crazy, but I was just like, okay, I don't know if I should be doing this, I'm like, why am I trying to push it so hard, which some people might try to go for a run or something that's much more intense. So I just listen to your providers and respect your body, ease back into things. I think,
just the slowness is, I really appreciate that. One thing that I have told a few people before, I don't know if I've ever told you, that after I gave birth the first time in the hospital, I had a provider come by, like, I think it was like maybe the day before I was discharged. And she said, it's going to be very important for you to start doing crunches right away as soon as you get home, because your core is just like jello right now. And I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Oh my gosh. What?
So of course I get home and like my body hurts so bad. Like there's no way.
Did you try to do crunches?
No, my body hurts so bad. But I felt really guilty that I wasn't. And that I was just like
this is what my doctor told me to do.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, I know I should be doing crunches right now, but it feels really wrong. Like I don't even think I can.
Yeah.
And so it was only like years after that I found out that was the worst thing that I could have possibly done as soon as I got home.
Where does stuff like that come from?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Women are being told that.
People are being told that. I don't know how many people are saying it, but there's at least one person.
Her still probably tells people.
One person out there.
That's crazy.
Saying, and my own mom, I remember like growing up hearing like her postpartum stories and stuff, and like one of the first things she did, she said she like got out, she left the the birth center the same day. And the next day she went to, it wasn't Walmart. It was like Walgreens. No, it was Kmart.
Kmart. Oh yes, it has to be Kmart. Right. Yeah, it matters. It definitely matters.
Yeah, she says I went to Kmart the next day, just walking around Kmart with the baby, and she said like her milk came in like in Kmart, and so like
there's so much happening. Why am I in Kmart right now?
but crazy. It was never like I shouldn't have gone there, or like physically it was really hard or anything like that. It was just that like the main part of that story was that someone said like, how far along are you, because she still had like the pregnant belly, and it like hurt her feelings so bad, and like then she heard a baby cry and her milk came in for the first time, and like she's in Kmart.
That's so wild. And so these are the reasons you should spend time in bed. Your body's changing, you're not emotionally ready to see people,
but no one
so much happening.
No one has like these stories from their mom where their mom's like, I was in bed for the whole first like 2 weeks of your life. No one's mom did that.
And it shows in their pelvic floor.
Yeah, after I had even like my second baby, my first baby, I had to rest because I had severe SPD during pregnancy, but then like after it didn't go right away, and then I was just super sore from the birth, and so I was pretty much a couch potato, and I wasn't really able to do a whole lot for the first week or two, which probably was a blessing. But the second time I felt awesome. Obviously I had like a really smooth home birth, and I went shopping a week later at Target.
Not Kmart. Target now.
No, Kmart was kind of going out.
It's all about Target now. It's amazing.
So I went, my sister actually, she didn't have any kids at the time, not for a long time after that, but she said, hey, I'm going to be in St. Augustine tomorrow. Do you want to like take the baby and
get out of the house a little bit? Have
like a whole shopping day? And I was like, that sounds awesome.
Bad idea.
Oh my gosh, we like went out to eat. We went to multiples. I think we went to like Bed Bath and Beyond. Wow. We went to Target. Target was the last place. And as I was standing in line to check out, I felt my whole pelvic floor. I was like, something is wrong. And I sat down.
In the floor?
On the floor, in the line, in like the checkout line, and I was like, something's coming out of me, and something is not right here. And I went home, I called my midwife, and I was like, I think I had like a prolapse today. I'm feeling something down there. It doesn't feel good. And she was like, yeah, you need to like be on bed rest for a couple more days.
You're like, yeah, I definitely wasn't. Oops.
Not at all.
Darn it.
Well, no one told me.
Yeah.
No one told me. And I mean, you feel pretty good, like especially after having a home birth or like a natural birth, you feel pretty dang good.
Yeah, like strong, empowered even mentally and everything. You're like then I can do everything.
So that's like my cautionary tale that I tell.
Cautionary tale.
I tell clients that all the time. Like, so I'm sure tons of clients have heard that story, because I'm like, you feel great until you're in Target.
Sitting on the floor and regretting everything. That's wild.
And then, and then I don't know what was coming out of me that day, but it was not what was supposed to.
You should be in bed. So if you're wondering what the whole point of the rest of this podcast towards the end was, just stay in bed. Allow yourself to rest. There's so many women who I talk to who haven't gone the midwife route who just say like, I was just like ready to get out of the house and I was ready to blah, 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 and it's just like, it's okay. It's okay to rest. It's okay to listen to your body before, when you're pregnant and preparing, but also postpartum. That's what I've loved most about working with midwives, but specifically you and Modern Midwives and the beautiful practice that you've created. So thank you for all that you have poured into the practice and the community and everything. It's highly impacted me and many other women. I can speak for them and say, because I'm in all the crunchy mom groups and stuff, and you guys come, very highly recommended. Everyone is like, I wish I was having more babies just so that I could work with Modern Midwives.
Aww.
Like, I hear that so much, actually.
That's so sweet.
Literally, everybody says that. And that's how I felt. I'm like, gosh, I can't wait to be pregnant again and just like walk through the whole process. Like, you guys make it so much fun in a way. You know, it's like obviously very vulnerable. There's parts that go kind of crazy in some scenarios like my own, but you ladies, I should say, make it manageable, and you help women walk through it and process and stuff, and it's just been such a blessing. Yeah,
that is the whole goal. We love it, and that like we're like high off of it all the time.
It's amazing. I mean, I feel like this podcast could easily be 17 hours because you have so much knowledge and value and experience. So thank you for taking even just a quick hour to share some of what you know. I really feel like it'll bless a lot of moms. And
thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Of course.
I really enjoyed it. I love talking. It's like my passion, all of it. So I love talking about it.
Yeah. It's going to bless a lot of people. So I'm really excited. Thank you.